Shabbat. Last week in Mishpatim, the Bible talked about Sabbath, and as we are always trying to get better at performing a mitzvah and also beautifying that mitzvah, I remembered that I had a book on Shabbos. In the aforementioned Torah portion, the basic idea was, and I think it's an excellent quote or summation, 6 days you shall do the things that you do, and on the seventh you shall cease. So with that in mind, I thought we might take a little look at this book, Shabbos, the Sabbath, its essence and significance. And it is written by Rabbi Shimon Finkelman, and it is produced by Art Scroll, and it is part of their Metzora series. I think the Metzora Foundation, Heritage Foundation, Metzora Heritage Foundation is one of the sources of basically the funds to be able to translate and write these things. So it's a wonderful book, and it's a wonderful organization. They've made possible a lot of materials that were previously only available in Hebrew, Aramaic, or some other language that not many of us speak, or at least I don't on a day-to-day basis. So anyway, Shabbat is my favorite day of the week. There is a great little thing that I may share with you all another time. It's called 6 Days We, but Tonight We. But one that just kind of jumped out at me because we do enjoy our food on Sabbath. It says, 6 days we eat and drink in haste. Tonight we savor the taste of bread and wine and feel the bond of the world that feeds us. So I think that kind of is a nice summation as well. Rabbi Telushkin basically said on the Sabbath, we don't create, transform, or produce. We don't, for instance, create by turning on a light, so we don't create light. We don't transform the environment by turning up the heat, not kindling a fire aside. And we don't produce fruit, for example, by watering or fertilizing our apple tree on the Sabbath. The Kaddish is said at the onset of Sabbath and Friday evening. The Jewish Sabbath is from Friday sundown until Saturday sundown. Technically, it's 18 minutes before sundown on Friday and 42 minutes after sundown on Saturday. The Kaddish, we bless the wine and the bread, and if you're a Christian, you'll recognize this from Jesus doing the very same thing. I think before he distributes the loaves of bread, for example. The two blessings are who creates the fruit of the vine, and that, of course, is the grape, which is then smashed into grape juice and either fermented or not fermented. And on the bread, it is who brings forth bread from the ground. Now, obviously, God does not actually bring forth bread from the ground, but this shows the synergy between man and God in creation and creating once, of course, the primeval creation was complete. It also helps delineate that only God can create something from nothing, in other words, the fruit of the vine, but man can put all the ingredients together to produce bread And God doesn't do that for us. So it's not like we go along the side of the road and pick wine, or go along the side of the road and pick bread. So with the idea of turn it, and turn it again, which is one of the sayings of the Talmud, and with the hope of beautifying and getting better at performing the mitzvah, I want to read a little bit of this book, and Sabbath will be here shortly. All right, so I'm starting on page 10, and this is part of the overview. It says, the lesson of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is far more than a time of mere cessation of labor. Those who seek rationales for the commandments usually speak of the Sabbath as a time when people can relax from their labors of the week so that they can work better on Sunday. And it does talk later about Sundays and holidays being additional days of relaxation, but Sabbath being more than that. True, when the young Moses in Egypt went out to see how his brothers were faring under the Egyptian lash, he came back to Pharaoh and suggested that the slaves be given a day of rest so that they could replenish their strength and be more productive the other 6 days. In the palace, Moses had to speak the language that Pharaoh could understand, but his true intention was to restore to his brethren the Sabbath that the patriarchs had observed and bequeathed to their descendants. Of course, this is a midrash. Midrashim are stories that may fill in a blank, may teach us something about the biblical passage, etc. We do not use midrash to glean law or action, but rather, as I said, they're to fill in a blank, tell a story, teach a principle, etc. And indeed, if you look at some of the Christian scriptures, you can see that, well, for instance, Matthew uses midrash quite extensively. Okay, continuing. We're on page 11 now. A day of relaxation is the reason for Sundays and holidays, but not for the Sabbath. The rest of the Sabbath is positive, not negative, and is primarily spiritual in nature. As Rashi comments on the phrase in the Ten Commandments, for 6 days you may labor and do all your work. When the Sabbath arrives, you should consider all your work done. Do not think about it, Exodus 29. You may have left the office or the store with enough work on your desk to keep you busy for a year, but on Sabbath it neither worries you nor concerns you. For all practical purposes, it is accomplished. Do not think about it. To spend your Sabbath analyzing the results of the last week and planning for the next violates the spirit of the day and is forbidden. Skipping down to the bottom of that page, it says, this is the rest that is demanded of us on the Sabbath. Or better said, it is what the precious gift of the Sabbath, with all of its spiritual riches that are included in it, enables us to achieve: contentment. And the previous paragraph just talked about the fact that rather than relaxation, Sabbath really tends to mean, in this case, contentment, or that is the action that we, or the goal, I guess I should say, of Sabbath is to be content. Sometimes just to be, we're so busy swirling around and doing this and doing that, whereas on Sabbath we can just be. Contentment. God describes the Sabbath as a goodly gift that I have in my treasure house, and he presented it to Israel. There is a legal concept in the Talmud that, contrary to a seller who gives up only what is specified in the bill of sale, one who gives a gift who gives with a generous eye, so that he can be assumed to include in his gift everything that is necessary for the recipient's enjoyment. I thought that was kind of a neat idea that, you know, if you sell something to somebody, here's a a meal, then the idea is it's a trade, money or whatever for the food, and that's it. Whereas when you're at someone's home and you have that same meal, they will bring you salt and pepper and bread and wine and whatever else you need for it to be true contentment and enjoyment. Generously and lovingly, God gave us his treasured Sabbath. With it, he gives us every week the ability to grow with it, use it to master ourselves, and enrich our world so that it will survive and prosper until we revivify it again the following Sabbath. The rabbis talk about basically the whole world kind of hanging on the Sabbath, and that's its reason for existence. So I thought this was kind of a neat continuation of our previous study of the philosophy of mitzvot. And indeed, we talked a little bit about that in the beginning of this chapter. I wish each of you a very happy and a very content Sabbath. Shabbat. Shalom.